we were having this exchange of students. We have already at the moment more than 20 students sent to Mexico. She will talk about a little bit about that. And you will see all the interesting ideas that Gothenburg and ICF in particular have come out of this program that we have. She's one of the few professors that have decided to come to Mexico. In the previous year, we have Bo Helsing. We have many other ones that have been here. And this time we are lucky enough to have her here. So please, welcome. And thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. Ooh, it's me who should say thank you. And I'm super grateful for being here and also having you here in the audience, even though it's late in the semester and I know you're busy with all kinds of stuff. As I was kindly presented, I will talk about this Beyond Papers, Impactful Research Activities, which is actually completely copied from our webpage, where we try to sort of visualize what we are trying to do, not only make publications, basically, from articles, but also to interact with schools, with society, with industries, other universities, collaborate beyond the Swedish borders, and so forth. And that is actually exactly the next slide. What is outreach? Because it can mean a little bit different for different persons. But just as I just said, we really want to be able to transmit whatever research findings we have, or relevant kind of activities for the schools, obviously, so that we need to accommodate it for the audience, whatever, to be able to make it useful in the end for the society. It also means that we collaborate with other organizations or authorities or political decision makers and so on. And of course, if we have the opportunity to interact with industries or even do entrepreneurship of our own, which is highly encouraged overall. So we say that we want to try to lower the thresholds for all these kinds of activities. And we do have at the university quite a good support system to help us also convert our research ideas into a possible spin-off company or provide us help with filing for a patent or things like that. Because we have something called the teacher's exception at GU, which means that we actually own our own findings and our results. So it is a possibility to combine our sort of independent research, but still create something that can be valuable for both the society and us as a person, actually. And finally, which is also encompassed in the outreach statement, is internationalization, which basically means that we want to just be able to recruit students from outside Sweden as well, not only within our borders. And also to find, maybe EU financing or funded collaboration with the consortium of a lot of different nationalities and groups. And of course, a scenario like this today. And finally, which more or less it targets the colleagues internally, I would say, but in the long run it actually would affect all these things, is that we organize on our faculty level internal courses for us, for our colleagues, to help us reach out with our research. For instance, popular science presentation skills. We have a course on interacting with journalists, also writing courses and all that kinds of things. But most recently, we also make this interdisciplinary and cross-borders masters fair, where we can submit ideas, for instance, in physics, and I work in biophysics, and I will reach biological or bio students that might come to our department and perform a master thesis work with me. And we do this together with Sahlgrenska, the University Hospital, with the Faculty of Science, and also the Technology University, Chalmers, which we actually are located together with. And we also have other collaborative research activities also just recently called Engineering Health. Again, this kind of constellation where we want to show for the whole 3 or 2 universities, that is, but also the medical faculty is sort of on its own a little bit, to show like successful stories where we have managed to create research projects where we really need the skills from one end of a discipline together with another. So for instance, a physician together with a mathematical statistician, or AI together with cell biologists, things like that. And so that we just also recently had. But I will not talk so much about those types of activities, because today it was outreach outside from a university and outwards that was the focus. So just very, very quickly, because it's not really super relevant, but interesting for you to see. So we have University of Gothenburg, which is quite large, not like UNAM, but still, have 8 different faculties in these different directions, where science, or the Faculty of Science, is one which I belong to. And as you can see, we have these 7 departments, and we try to work as much as possible on joint themes within these outreach activities. And if we move to our department, we have then this outreach activity that I am sharing, but on the faculty level, we have similar as the other persons representing the other departments, and together we work on the faculty level with a lot of activities that I will also explain today. And yeah, we all have different backgrounds, of course, and also in our little group there are all different levels, from PhD students. We have Laura, and one of the Mexican PhD students. We have the communicator, and we have researchers also involved. And then Carlo and Jonas here, they are actually our main responsible person for the school activities. So they are targeting those topics a little bit more than the rest. And I support them quite a lot with the organization and creating sort of some kind of stability around these activities. So I have been on this chair position, so to say, for just, well, now it's actually 1.5 years. And I've been at the Department of Physics since 2008. So I quite well known my colleagues, but it was impossible to know whatever activities they were engaged in, because it wasn't seen anywhere. So if I wasn't engaged in their activity per se, I didn't know that it existed. And it wasn't broadcasted anywhere. So my first step was actually to just force my colleagues to interact with me. So I sent out emails and like, what do you do? What kind of activities are you engaged in? Do you have a large collaboration? Do you have interdisciplinary collaborations? Whatever. And they had to come back to me. And by doing that, I would also get response from the ones that are most willing to actually engage. So it was an easy selection process. And from that, I tried to make some kind of structure, an annual structure, what will happen, and have some kind of time to plan. And I used this interactive tool, which I find kind of useful. Unfortunately, it's not the best resolution. It's just for us to be able to structure the work a little bit. As you can see, it has these rings, and they have different colors. By the way, a lot of the things I show is in Swedish, but I try to explain it in English, because it's targeting the Swedish schools and so on. But as you can see, the different colors corresponds to some different audience at least. So we have, for instance, targeting teachers in upper secondary school, or the undergraduate students, or yeah, different levels basically on the age of school pupils, for instance. And then, of course, we have the different timings here, and some activities are not even in here because they run yearly, so they are in a box on the side. Yes, and let's see. I think it's alive. Yes, okay. So what I did here was basically just standing on top of one of these. I was going to say, yeah, we have a lot of other activities that are just in a box on the side. And all our colleagues can go and log into our interest net and find this. And then they can just hover on top of one of these activities, and they will get some more information of like who is the responsible contact person, usually me, not always, and what kind of engagement do we need for next round, like how can you help? And yeah, if there's a page, of course, to find more information, they can do that. So it serves both as a checkup for us to make sure that we have people who can engage in the next coming activity, but it's also to inspire, and it's also to give credit for the ones who actually, you know, work in these kind of activities. And the final part that I did once I got these responses and everything, I created the web page that we could at least show what we are doing outside the university. And it's kind of a stiff program that we use, so we don't have too much versatility. So it's not so easy to find, which is very unfortunate. But I'd like to broadcast this and make it sure that people find it. So when we click into this web page, we find all the different activities that we can offer from the department level. We have something called Physics in Media. We have displayed only the different big consortium where we work within EU. And EU is really, really harsh on us doing these outreach activities. We all need to have Twitter accounts, and we all need to broadcast whenever we do something. We have to engage in science festivals and things like that. And then we have Physics for Schools, and this is kind of a big part of the outreach. For the upper secondary school, we have courses, we have site visits, we have this fysiklek in Swedish, or playful physics, which can be targeting both the upper secondary school students, elementary school, or even the teachers. So depending on the level, of course, we have these different kind of nice experiments, and so we can target to different ages. And in the elementary school, we also have the planetary and something called Physics at Liseberg, where we have a professor who works very much with this playful activities at our amusement park. So you bring a little toy and you go in the amusement roller coasters, and you try to explain what happens with the toy, meanwhile exposed to these forces and so on. I will just briefly take a few examples. So for the Physics in Media, we have one astronomer, our single astronomer, Maria Sendin, who's a professor in astronomy, radio and television. And she is extremely active in media. We can see here almost every week in the television. She has numerous radio shows where she talks about, for instance, exoplanets and life on Mars and similarly. And she is recruiting a lot of our students on evening classes in astronomy, and very much like to combine really interdisciplinary fields in her courses, like exoplanets or life on different planets, and how it's also displayed in arts, for instance, and really, really nice combinations. And on top of that, she also has been our commenter on the Nobel Prize ceremony when they announced the Nobel laureates, I think 2 or even 3 years in a row, maybe 2 years in a row. If we go back here, the site visits that we offer, we just recently had these kind of activities. November was a very busy month. One of these activities was the site visits. So school teachers can actually book online if they want to come and visit, for instance, physics department then. And we this year divided it in a little bit of different activities because it was like 60 persons coming, and we had to make half of them engage and look into like really nice and cool and funky experiments or demonstrations, and the other half went to walk around with PhD students in the different labs and got a little sneak peek on what we're doing research-wise. And we had a popular scientific seminar that actually I was trying to give because I'm the black sheep of our department. I'm a biologist from the medical faculty and then ended up in physics. So I tried to merge these topics, and I'm trying to give everyone a little tease that sometimes it doesn't also matter where you start, because you can end up still in an unexpected field, right? And then, of course, we had questions and answers, and the students representatives of our program also showed like what you can do in your spare time and try to sort of really inspire them to choose physics in the university studies. And as today, these talks that we had here were also broadcasted for the students or classes that couldn't come physically to our university. And yeah, playful physics, or fysiklek in Swedish. It's this really, really nice floor that we have built with a lot of toys and just simple experiments that can inspire also for the teachers maybe to bring with them and do in their own classroom and so on. And again, it's an online booking system. We have Jonas Singer here who's responsible, and it's a collaboration actually between Chalmers and Geo, so it's not only geophysics that does this. And yeah, it's really nice, and we usually bring our guests there as well because it's a very inspiring environment. This is also where we had the planetary that we can use and fill with air and let people go into and look at the stars, so to say. So this is a nice activity. And in combination of what we do in the department, of course, we collaborate a lot with the faculty. And the faculty organizes bigger events and engaging the different departments in them as well. And one of them is, for instance, the Explorer Club, which was the one I explained when we met in August, which is very close to my heart. And I've been doing that for 7 years and now given the task to a colleague, which targets school kids in the age of 10 to 12. And during 2 years, they're engaged in doing experiments in different disciplines. We have something Swinglish told, window towards natural science, like a sneak peek into natural science event. We have an activity called Book a Lecturer, the topic day, how is this known, living question box, and something called guide days. I will not go through all of them, but please come back to me if you're interested and ask questions. I will give a few examples. So I need to tell you about the Explorer Club because it's really, really a very nice club that I wish would have been available when I was a kid. So it's really broadcasted from my side as a natural science activity done on your spare time. So it is, instead of going to maybe only sports or whatever, you can go to the science club and do something else. And what we do is, of course, to focus on the different themes within our faculty. So we try to cover all the science or the departments of our faculty. And we do experiments, we look at demonstrations, we do site visits. We have this question box, sort of that they can send in emails on anything, and we prepare an answer in a pedagogical way next time we meet and so on. And we hope to just create this curiosity and urge to know more, so that they in the end will actually search for these kind of university courses or see their future within science. And I put a lot of work to try to cover all, or at least parts of what we're actually doing at the faculty. So we make these topics, and I have more topics than I can fit in 2 years, just in case. But each topic runs for 4 occasions. And every time we meet for 2 hours, and I have 30 students that come then every other week. And so we managed to do 8 of these themes during the 2-year enrollment. So far we have had these different themes, and it's really nice because some of the persons that I engage at the different departments are people that I might have learned or got to know during some course that I've taken or so, or that I knew from beforehand, and they are like any of you guys, like the professors, and they are very busy and they are also very motivated and want to do these kinds of things, and that's why we sort of teamed up. So Alexandro Antonelli, he was a very successful professor at 36 years in the botanics and biodiversity field, and he is now, I think, the responsible person for the key Botanical Garden in London. So he's still affiliated to Gothenburg University, for instance. So we had this theme with him, astronomy. Actually, Maria was busy with her evening courses, but her husband, Peter Ekberg, writes children's books within all different kinds of fields, and had one on life on Mars, I believe it was. So I invited him and a colleague, and Katja is the responsible physicist at our local observatory, so we could go there also and visit. And then, as you can see, I will not go through all of them, but we tried to cover a lot of different fields, and I will give just a sneak peek of some of the activities we did during these years. Oh, yes, one of our departments is conservation, and that is still to be a theme. I haven't managed it quite yet. So this was the botanical theme, where we meet in our Botanical Garden in Gothenburg, and it is sunny, so it is not in the winter, but yeah, a bit cold still. So this is a statue of Carl von Linné that you might know of, and we could walk around in the Botanical Garden, but also exit outside, where the kids could, for instance, get samples from a plant or similarly, and in a neat way get instructions, and later on press it and dry it, and it was placed in our electronic herbarium, so they could actually find themselves as a sample taker of a specific species. And we also picked up smaller organisms and substances, basically from 2 different types of woods, for instance, and we brought them back, and they worked on the taxonomy kind of classification and things like that. And it's, again, just snapshots from these 4 occasions within these topics. So I also try to, because in Gothenburg we have a humor that is a bit ironic, and we like puns, or like playing with words. So usually I try to make a nice and a little bit funny title for it. Not funny in English, but in Swedish this is also a television star program, reaching for the stars, basically, like singing and winning something. Anyway, so this is the astronomy theme, where we have, of course, a little bit of theory, and then looking at the different gases with the spectrometer and trying to understand the electromagnetic field. And we do these glasses because it was also the time of the sun eclipse at the time. We also had a chance to visit this little observatory, got a nice image of the moon, tried to explain the gravity and black hole theory, which was kind of tricky. And this is the planetary, in which they can go in and lie, and we talk about the constellation and history about that and so on. The next theme was circuits around computers. Oh, sorry, I missed a little bit here. Where they are, for the first time, trying to solder, and we made this little ship, which is in the end programmed to become one of these electronic stochastic dices, so they could play with and have in a board game or something similar. And with this, of course, practical work, they also get a little glimpse into the theory part, but not too much, but just so that they can tag along and understand. And it's also 2 years age difference, so we have to take that in consideration as well, because they are in 4th and 5th grade. We have a math theme called Pattern Masters, where there's a very, very nice activity that has been, improved over the years on our science festival in Sweden. And you might recognize these Hanoi's towers. We played with prim numbers and exponential growth. We have trying to understand how to make circles, what is a circle and so on, and also understand the relationship between the patterns drawn with this spirometry and the cogwheels numbers and things like that. And it's a really engaging and a little bit tricky theme, but they are so good. So here I engage mathematicians that worked a lot with the pedagogical background in this particular field. This is a geology theme, extremely appreciated. Not only do they try to find small gold grains, but they had prepared these buckets with like different layers of sediments of different kinds and prepped them with the corresponding aged fossils. So each group, there are like 8 of these buckets, and the students are carefully harvesting one layer by another. And together in the end, we find the slightly overlap between different buckets, and we can find the geological kind of age era together. It's really, really hilarious and a lot to clean afterwards, but it's really nice. Yeah, they also get a chance here because they had a nice instrument of electron microscopy, so they could bring something from home or from their body part, or as someone said, like a small lump of green, what does it say, cloth I found in my pocket one midsummer. And we looked at how that would look like in the electron microscope. They also got the theory and are trying to count with dendrology and understand the concept of different sediments and how water flows in the different parts and so on. It's a really, really nice thing. Yes, as a spare-up activity at one point when I think there was something that was cancelled, I had to come up with another theme, and I chose a CSI Criminology theme because I had some contacts. And so we brought from our soft lithography clean lab a suit like this and said, this is what you wear as a CSI criminologist. And we made a little bit of an ID, and I bought like proper props from the police who helped me, and we got these nice fingerprints for them and so on. And we isolated their own DNA, played with candy that we could eat and so on. And then we staged a little bit of a crime at my office. Someone has broken in and taken the candy from a safety and so on, and left a lot of leads. So we made like these witness packages with old shoes from the family. We made chromatography, finding out who wrote the message, and so on and so forth. We really played with all the instruments we could or IDs we had. And we had a contact, actually, a criminologist working at one of the police departments who we could interview and talk to. And yeah, this is actually my husband. He had to be the staged criminal that someone had seen. So the kids got to see a photo of him for just a short while, and then exited the room, and one of our helpers here sat and tried to make a phantom photo or image of him afterwards, which was kind of nice because he didn't know this was the phantom guy or the bad guy. So they had to explain and be the expert witnesses in the end, and we just played with this. It was just fun. And then we have a chemistry field, and this is also combined with one of the site visits. So we have an organization called, a place called Universium in Gothenburg, which is really a house of exploration and a tropical garden inside, and all the animals and fishes and aquarium and all that. And they also have a small lab where you can enter and do like very simple experiments, just finding out what is what in a mixture, and measuring pH and examine and look at and not taste but smell and so on. And so we went there for the first round, and then we played with metabolism. So here is a yeast cell mixture in a balloon, a little bit slow, but by the end of the class we could explain and understand what was in the balloon, and we talked about the cell metabolism and respiration and so on. And then we talked and made these kind of nice sugar crystals and could talk about evaporation and things like that. There's a lot of things you can extend and make more and more complex for older kids, but again, they are quite young. But it's always nice to see things burning and flames and bubbling and so on. So this was our final event, and we ended up making some neat and nice and smooth ice cream for them before they went home for Christmas. Just a few more on the Explorer Club, because it's so fantastic colleagues. This is Sam Dupont, I think he's from Belgium, and he is working with research regarding acidification of our oceans. So he belongs to the Marine Department, and they are located partly in Gothenburg city, but also we have affiliations further out along the coast. So he drives quite far for these events, and he fills his car with big buckets with all these nice sea living animals for the kids to see and understand and carefully touch, and which one of them are most sensitive to acidification and which are not, and grouping of families and so on. Again, pH is of course one of the biggest things here. And they are so tender with the animals, and they are getting the feeling of this is very important. And as you know, the younger generation is really concerned, and they get very engaged. And I think with these kind of activities, they also feel that they can do something. It's not like a hopeless scenario, that they can engage and they can make a change. So it's a really, really nice also field. Focus on colors is our own concept, where we are at the physics department using some simpler instruments and detection of, for instance, here is a heat camera for infrared, and we imaging or illumination, and we irradiation, and we shield ourselves with different kind of materials and so on, and trying to explain what's happening. We talk about the eye and the focus and different lenses and so on, and we make our own spectroscope, which was actually working in. It's a bit tricky with getting the right angle and so on, but it's a good example of trying to explain how let's see, can you get this work? How the light is divided into its different colors, of course, and explain how it works and why and so on, and compare to the rainbow. So it again can be really, really complex, which we do not go into, but they get really happy having something they can bring home. And of course, after all these events, I try to also make like an internal web page so the parents can engage, and some tips and tricks, what they can read, or, instead of a traditional kind of birthday or Christmas gift, they can buy something that relates to these things. And I try to include some links and so on, so that they can interact with the kids and follow up, and maybe do a few experiments in the kitchen at home. Next thing is book a lecturer, and all the departments then have on the faculty webpage these kind of activities. So you can, as a teacher, go and basically book whoever is responsible. You can combine several or make just a focus of a specific field for one day. I am, as I said, quite engaged in these outreach activities, so I also have a theme here. And either I or we get invited to the schools, or they can come to us, or we combine it with some other, as I said, theme. We can also do digital events and so on. And it's nice when the same school, recurrent every year, call you back, and you sort of think, I do something right at least. And hopefully this is something that can be, with the digitality or the online events, be more spread. And again, this is a good opportunity for us to try to lower the level and talk in a way that the students actually can understand. And my talk is actually focused on my research specifically, but I obviously have to change the wording and what is the key, and I bring props and so on. It's really nice, and I think it's inspiring. The topic day, as it says, it's really an inspiration day for school teachers. Also happened quite recently, and it then is not only the faculty, but it's organized together with all the topics that a teacher would actually have in school. So they have a joint seminar, and then they, depending on what kind of teacher you are, you choose your field. And this year was a record. We had 90 teachers visiting our department. And what we did was that we had this invited lecturer who talked about astronomy, which is a very nice topic, and how did one take these images of the black holes was the topic. And then we tried a new concept this year. We had a poster session with researchers and PhDs from our lab, that they could just go around and mingle, have coffee, and maybe spotted something they were interested in, just as an inspiration, because it's not really transferable always to the school content. But then the teachers could also choose one of the 4 workshops after this. So either in playful physics, where they got this, as I explained before, hands-on demonstrations or experiments, a simulation activity on active matter, and then they got the actual, they could actually get the simulation with them if they wanted to play with this and explain for the kids in school. Arduino programming and smartphones in teaching, or 3D CAD and 3D printing. And then smaller groups were engaged in these workshops at the department. And I will jump a few because I don't know how much time I have left. I wanted to give just a little bit angle to this. Or maybe first I can just say this. How is this known? I did not include a lot of that. But it's a very nice broadcasted event on, I think also, is it YouTube or Facebook? Facebook, I think. Anyway, where we try to find a field and pick people from different disciplines, and they discuss their point of view, a field. So for instance, the latest was energy, and we had a professor in marine biology who worked with algae and how that could be used for energy, and we had a professor from physics talking about how to manipulate the material of windows to extract the energy from the sunlight using the window material and things like that. And then they sit and discuss, and it's also broadcasted. And now it's really nice because it's in English, so you can tune into this. We can also see who is listening where, and it's really nice because it's just increased the number of listeners. But what I wanted to say is this final event here is something we just tried out once, and it regards this interaction with industry. So this is the pun thing here. Guide is GU for University of Gothenburg, but in Swedish, and ID, so it's a GUID day, where we wanted to meet then specific and targeted collaborators, possibly in industry, to work with us. And we, from the information we had from our faculty, because what I did, invested in time and tried to figure out what our colleagues actually worked with and engaged in, we found that the image processing with AI was something that could be found in the different departments, not only in physics. So we made 3 different sessions focusing on subsea image analysis, the automotive industry using AI, and in life science. And it was a really successful event, and it actually made both a submission to a big grant and actually a collaboration that is now long-lasting, ending up in us actually creating a company. And now we are working towards another company. So we are basically helping them out in their image analysis part. And the next topic we are trying to run next year is business for biodiversity, which is again that within the university and the field of biodiversity, people know how to evaluate, for instance, if there's a unique plant or organism of some kind in an area, and how to go through and scrutinize that. Meanwhile, for instance, if a company that builds roads or houses, they don't know how to start. And so the idea is that we will bring those types of organizations together with the experts in this field and help out making good decisions for these kind of events, for building, for creating a new, I don't know, campus or building block of houses or whatever. So that is a colleague of mine who has the responsibility or the main responsibility for that. So, in our university, it is said that we should do teaching, we should do research, of course, and we should do outreach, and they should be equally important. The thing is that you do quite well without the outreach, so you don't have to. But this is about to change slightly. So one thing that we made an effort to change this is that every year we have awards for research, best thesis, the pedagogical prize, and things like that. And what we made or installed was a synergy award as well. So it should matter that you engage in these things. It should be important. And also when we do employment now on new tenure track positions and so on, it's an important question to ask. Have you any experience of this, and how do you intend to do your part? So it's about to change. But this is very nice. So we have a ceremony every year, and this year it was a person called Kristina Sundell who has done immensely amounts of outreach. And she's also so much engaged in political decision makers and organizations, because she works in the field of water and wood industry and all that. And so it's amazing work she has done. So she was rightfully the one awarded this prize this year. Another thing that we have done is during the PhD education, the students need to take like 60 credits of courses or other activities that they can account for. And at least up to 3 credits of these now we can directly give to them for their participation in different outreach activities. And of course it has to be not only going, hi, my name is, we have to do some more work, so it corresponds to the time at a course. But at least it's 3 credits, or if they have enough credits, they can actually get extension of their time. And this is something that is decided together with the PhD student and the examiner and the supervisors jointly. And finally, also us, we as teachers who sort of do this either for fun, because we like it, we can also now get some money or funding to compensate for our time, not having to pay for our own salary with external funding during these times of events and so on, which is also a big step forward. And on the internationalization level, I can't say that word, now I missed out on him, just he walked out the door at me. But this is also part of it, really. So every year we have the possibility to suggest honorary doctors. And you might or might not know, but so Remy was awarded this in 2020 at our university. And it's also part of all this highlight on our outreach and how we collaborate across borders and all that. So I think all of this is leading us in the right direction, and I hope it will be more sort of beneficial, not only for my own sake, I like it, but also that it's shown merit-wise that you do put your time and efforts in these kinds of activities. And with that, I would thank you for your attention, and I also want to highlight again the Linnaeus Palme Foundation. That is the main reason why I could come here and visit you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karen. I enjoyed this talk. Sweden actually had a chance to go to display physics room, which is fantastic. I think we should really have something like this here.
It's nice.
A lot of very, very motivating experiences. Now I open the session.
Yes, please.
Thank you for such a nice talk.
Thank you.
Well, I have 3 questions which are related and more specifically for physics. But in general, what percentage of female students do you get in STEM careers? And specifically, if you have the data on physics. And then related to that, do you have a specific program to attract women to these careers, specifically physics? And the last one, does it work? How does it happen?
Very good question. And I wish I could say immediately the number, but I have very little insight in the number of the ratio on our program. I think we still have, it's very similar, I would say, to anywhere else. Very low abundance of female students. But I would say that the ones that continue are the ones that we also like to broadcast, So when we do this kind of PR movies and so on, we are really strict, making sure that we show both genders, for instance, and even better in different nationalities and all that, so we can sort of try to show diversity on all levels. And I think that helps. I definitely think that helps. If you see a person looking like you, you see it's a possibility, and then you're like, okay, that could be me. I mean, that's the basic thinking around it, I think. How it works? Well, unfortunately, I think as everywhere else, it's slow. Yes. I think, if I look at also at Chalmers, I think it's quite a lot still compared to later on, the ratio of female and male students. But as we are aware of, the ratio changes the higher up you come, and that's still the fact, unfortunately. If I look at myself, not only am I a biologist at the physics department, but I am one of the few associate professors also female. So it's a slow process. We are not too big a department. We are like 140 now, I think, with maybe 50% PhD students. But from the PhD students, I don't dare to say. Maybe a fourth or something like that. I have to check this up. But, it is a slow process. The exact figures I can come back on, but I think the main thing is that we like to show that we have this diversity. So when there are these student visits and so on, it's a mixture, always a mixture. And if we do like a PR movie, as I said, we just cherry pick people so that we show the diversity. It's super important. So maybe in the long run.
Thank you for the talk. That was really good.
Thank you.
So you mentioned about you make like this website for parents, and I thought that was interesting because usually you don't hear about parents, no? So I was wondering, how do you engage the parents, and are they like enthusiastic about this? And how do you like watching their kids, getting involved with science?
Yes. So in the science club. So first, it's a mixture of things I want to say. We broadcast the event online at our webpage. We also put it in the newspaper, and we also put it outside like grocery shops and so on. And when I took this over 7 years ago from actually Dag Hanstarp, who worked with Antonio Rebbi, he suggested because already there is a skewed application between boys and girls. So he said maybe we should do something here. So what we did, and I was doing that, and I was happy to do that, and I stand for that. I just split it. Half of the spots was for girls, and half of the spot was for guys, all boys. And when I succeeded with that, those 2, 3, 4 years when it was fully packed before the pandemic and everything, was the best science club ever. It was so dynamic, and it was so nice and happy and, stimulating and all that. The next part was also to try to get kids from less maybe academic families, because those were the ones that were very keen on applying and all of that. Although we made it an open period of application, so not like the fastest person to apply, but we actually did this kind of picking without knowing who was who. But then we also included to try to pick like postal or zip code numbers from less kind of academic areas, so to say, or inner city areas, to sort of further diversify the group, which was really good. And then with the parents and so on, from all the years I get the most lovely emails and like notes and things like that. And when the kids stop in 5th grade, they are so sad. Like, I did this evaluation, so what did you like best? What did you like least? What can we do better? And they had to put like on a note, and I wrote on the whiteboard, and it was just, the bad thing is that I have to stop in 5th grade. The worst thing is every other week. The worst thing is that it's ending over the summer. And they were like so sad that there was no continuation of this. So as a consequence of that, I tried to actually, I applied for a few funding agencies within the Gothenburg city, to try to engage the city to create a continuation for older kids. I didn't succeed, but then just recently there was a mom coming up towards me and saying, what can we do? Can we do something? We are a lot of parents, we can help out, maybe we can push this. So a lot of the parents have the strength and energy and capacity to do something, and we could definitely engage them in something similarly. But a lot of them might not even have academic background. So the web page for them, I think, helped them quite a lot. So in that way, maybe that level of engagement is all that you can ask, but they at least could follow up. And it was internal only for the parents towards that group. So it's nothing that I can show, but it was like a lot of text explaining what we did and how we thought and why and so on. And just these tips and tricks, what they could do. And sometimes I see a guy or a girl in the woods somewhere with this yellow backpack, and I'm like, oh. Actually, I have my girl, she's 12 herself. She was in the Scouts. And when she was out in the woods at some point, she saw this yellow backpack on a boy. And she was like, oh, you're in the science club? Yes. It's my mom. I said, is it true? It was a really nice encounter.
That was very, very nice. Are there any more questions, comments?
You have shown us that you have a lot of faculty, people working with you, and you start talking that you have to reach out to know them, and the question is, how do you do to convince the scientific community to work with you, other than the just enthusiastic interest from each people? Do you have any strategy to engage scientists?
And now you were talking about my colleagues, basically. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think it's actually, if you don't have an inherent drive to do this, there is no incitament that you have to do it so far. And this is why I think it's so important that we put a little bit pressure on the 3 cornerstones. Like, you should do also this outreach. And it should be meriting, and it should be important. It's our duty to do it. You know, we have to do it, but it's not that strict today. So my incitement now is just to give a lot of credit to the ones that actually do engage. I have a monthly spot on our department meetings where I just briefly tell what is upcoming events, where we need help, or like who to contact for certain events. And I also like to highlight the ones that did help in the past. You know, like, oh, we just had a successful topic of the day, and we thank this and this and this who helped out. It was a success. Everyone was really happy. Let's do it again next year. And just, you know, I actually got some responses now, because now everyone waits for my little update on the department meetings. At least that's what I think. But I got some positive feedback, like, oh God, this is great. And people come spontaneously. I want to actually engage. How do I do that? Where do I fit? So again, a slow process, but I think with the continuous iteration and bring it up and, you know, make it a natural thing. And for the students who come in now, they don't know anything else. They hear this every month now, and like, that's how it is. So I think slowly, in maybe 2, 3, 4 years again, I hope there will be like a line of people. I can help, I can do this. But again, it will be the most persons that still like it, of course, and will, I mean, those are the ones who will engage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? I want to put mine at the end. About this guide program you have, engaging with the industry. How or who does this scouting and statistical analysis of what's relevant and what's not?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It took a lot of time. So it was me and one more person, Matthias Obst. So again, what we did on our departments was to take in information like what outreach and so we do, but we also know our department quite well, so we know what kind of research topics that were ongoing, right? And then we try to find the common grounds around the faculty, which is not possible, but maybe engaging 2 or 3 departments at least. And then we boiled it down after a really long time to this topic. And then we started contacting companies. So we had in the end, not a huge amount, because that wasn't also our intention, but we had 10 companies that agreed on coming, shortly present their idea, business idea, and on which level or in which exact field they would like to maybe have some collaboration. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were going to hire or pay for someone at the university doing these tasks. It could be like a long-term commitment, having a joint master student, a joint PhD student, a postdoc, submit a grant, and so on. And we were very clear when we contacted the companies that this was the case. We don't promise everything will go smooth. This is an opportunity for you to meet and discuss, like matchmaking. So they came, they had a 10-minute talk, half day, a little bit of mingle, and then they submitted, when they walked home for the day, a little bit of wish list, who they wanted to date. And then in the evening we were sitting and just making the schedule for the next day. And then we broadcasted it the next day. Everyone came and like, oh, I have a meeting with that one, that time, and that one, that time, and that one, that time. And we had booked small rooms so they could go in and chat, discuss, and from that on we just left them, and what would be, basically. So,
Proper dating.
Yep. But yeah, I said to the faculty, like, oh, maybe we could be one or more people working on this, because it took way too much time to do this. You know, companies, they really want to know, is it worth it? Will I have to present? You know, so if it was spot on, they came and it worked well. But yeah, a lot of work.
Is there any further questions? If not, I would like to ask you to thank.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice talk. It's been a privilege to have you here with us. We hope the remaining of your stay in Mexico keeps on being sunny.
I think it will. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Carol.
Gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.